What a difference 2 years makes. 6:51, I'm Greg Bishop, Springfield's Morning News, and let's do a flashback here, especially after the past 2 years we've had to kind of assess where we've come from. We shared with you from 2 years ago the other day, Governor J.B. Pritzker during a weekend news conference 2 years ago talking about the stay-at-home orders and how people wouldn't have to show their papers or anything. But that, of course, was something that kicked in over a weekend 2 years ago this week. And Facebook reminded me again of a memory from 2 years ago when I was over in the newsroom here at WMAY. Keep in mind, I stayed home. I've been coming to work here at the radio station every day, as a lot of you out there have been going to work. Those in construction, those doing transportation projects, those who are working at grocery stores. You've been going to work every single day without pause, unless you got COVID, for instance. But then it was back to work after you cleared up. So it was kind of interesting to kind of reflect back to 2 years ago when that all started, and a lot of people were staying home. And I'll tell you, it was fascinating because you got to see the ultimate result of a stay-at-home order if you were out. And something I noticed, not just driving into work without many vehicles on the road, but even driving home from work. There were very few vehicles on the road and just a lot of truckers getting goods to where they needed to go. So flashing back to 2 years ago, here is what I was doing back then was a Start Smart video series of sorts, where every morning I would start by kind of just laying out the news. And this is the Monday after the start of the stay-at-home order 2 years ago, yesterday. And what a difference a weekend makes. Because of fears of spreading the novel coronavirus, as of Saturday, Governor J.B. Pritzker ordered parts of Illinois' economy to be shut down through April 7th. Non-essential workers in Illinois ordered to not leave their house, joining more than 1.4 billion people across the globe asked to do the same. In Washington, Congress still working on a measure that could send stimulus payments to American workers and businesses, as some project the unemployment rate to skyrocket because of the economic shutdown. Stocks took a dive yesterday. So I wanted to share it just for that particular issue that was raised in as far as the unemployment that was expected to skyrocket because of the governor's stay-at-home order. And again, that was 2 years ago yesterday when that analysis was made following the governor's COVID-19 stay-at-home order. So now fast forward to 2 years later and reflecting on everything that happened from then to now, you've got skyrocketing unemployment. I mean, I think some of the numbers a week was in excess of 200,000 just in Illinois filing for unemployment. And then the backlog started. People couldn't get through to the Illinois Department of Employment Security. They couldn't physically go to an unemployment office because they were closed to the public, and they couldn't get through on the phone. We had multiple stories for months on end about that. And then the matriculation of fraud was being found. People were being sent cards with cash on it that they didn't request, and then it started. You started realizing that all of the enhanced unemployment that was being paid out, it was incurring a large, substantial amount of debt. And Illinois still has $4.5 billion in unemployment debts, but that unemployment debt, not necessarily something that was immediately paid off until yesterday. Yesterday, the Illinois lawmakers, they lined up payments to go pay off a variety of things. They did supplemental appropriations to give like $300 million to the $140 billion unfunded pension liability, tens of millions of dollars for unpaid old medical bills, and even I think like hundreds of millions of dollars for a beleaguered college savings program. But business and labor negotiators, they're now staring down the barrel of tax increases and benefit cuts if nothing's done with continued unemployment debt. But lawmakers did yesterday. Democrats alone, Republicans didn't sign off on this. They agreed to partially pay down some of the $4.5 billion in unemployment debts. And that partial payment is going to leave still some continuing debt that business and labor groups are going to have to debate on how to exactly solve that debt. Well, here's a bit of back and forth from Republicans that said, listen, we wanted to pay off the entirety of this because without paying off the entirety, there's still going to be a couple of $1 billion that the state's going to be on the hook for, and businesses are going to possibly see tax increases while unemployed people will see benefit reductions and a host of other issues that arise. You'll hear from State Senator Chapin Rose, State Senator Wynn Stoller, two Republicans, followed by Governor J.B. Pritzker and Democratic State Representative Jay Hoffman here as we do a Statehouse roundup on the WMAY Springfield Morning News.
And now our job creators are going to pay, which, by the way, that transforms itself into less jobs. And people are going to pay. Because when you get laid off and you can't put food on your kid's table and you can't send your kid to college anymore, you're going to have up to $400 less in benefits because they didn't fully fund it today. They've had $16 billion over the last 2 years, and they couldn't fix this. $16 billion, they couldn't fix this.
Because we didn't have any agreed bill here. There's no agreement, there's no plan, so those speed bumps are set to take place. And in those, $500 million of increased taxes and $500 million of benefit cuts, thinking that that's going to drive the parties to the table and negotiate this out. So that is what is planned to happen unless something else changes it.
Well, first of all, more of our ARPA dollars were put in here as a percentage than any other Midwestern state. I mean, literally, this was an enormous infusion. That's never happened before. This is normally a contained process, an agreed bill process between labor and business to decide how we're going to pay off any deficit that exists in the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. So this is an enormous benefit that's been provided. That process will continue to go on, and it will reach a result that will pay off that debt.
So it's my understanding that in 2011, the employers took the entire responsibility to pay off the bonds, and there weren't no benefit decreases in 2011.
So again, that's some of the back and forth with Senate Republicans voting against a measure that Democrats supported in both the House and the Senate to pay down some of the backlog of unemployment debt. But Republicans, the reason they say they didn't support that was because they wanted to use as much federal dollars as possible, your tax dollars, to pay down some of, not some, all of the remaining unemployment trust fund debt. But something else, too, that's kind of frustrating, at least for those who want some more transparency and better accountability of how your tax dollars are spent. We still don't know how much fraud there's been in the unemployment system, which is expected to be pretty staggering considering other states have announced billions of dollars just in their states alone. What's it going to be like in Illinois? So we'll monitor that for you and so much more. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.